I had never been sick a day in my life, and yet here I am, rushed to the hospital. I find myself hooked up to an IV, lying in a bed. My husband and mom-in-law look down at me with this. "We're supposed to be family, living under the same roof." His wife, she mutters. I can't believe my eyes when they place divorce papers in front of me. My name is Sophia, and I'm 52 years old. I lost both parents in an accident as a child and was raised by my grandmother. She supported me through vocational school, and I fulfilled my lifelong dream of becoming a child care worker. Life was fulfilling until my grandmother, worried about my lack of a love life in my 30s, introduced me to my now husband, Mason. I was inexperienced with relationships, but I fell for his kind face and slightly pushy demeanor, quickly tying the knot. When my grandmother's health suddenly deteriorated, hoping to give her peace of mind, after she passed away, she left me a small inheritance. "Because it makes me look bad," Mason said, and I became a housewife at his request. We used my inheritance as a down payment on a house in an upscale suburban neighborhood. Mason's high salary and our beautiful new home, everything seemed perfect. But then, reality hit us hard. We couldn't have children. By the time we considered fertility treatments, it was too late for me, and we decided to lead a modest but happy life together. But there was one person who wasn't happy about this, my mom-in-law. Our relationship was never great, but after we decided not to have children, she started harassing me every time we visited. "You're just an immature woman who can't have kids. At least work hard when you're here," she said. Buffed, I stand there as my mom-in-law smirks and says, "Well, isn't it nice that the daughter-in-law takes care of all the housework? Come on, let's relax in the living room." My relatives follow her lead and exit the kitchen. "I appreciate that," my relatives would say. "Thank you, take care. Let us know if you need anything." But not a single person offered to help me. I guess it makes sense. No one dares to challenge my temperamental mom-in-law, and nobody actually enjoys working in the kitchen. Perhaps because it's the countryside, there's always been a level of gender inequality at my spouse's parents' house, centered around my father-in-law. The men would be drinking and making a ruckus while the women were busy with preparations. But I never thought all this work would fall on me just because we can't have kids. I can't handle alcohol, and it might be easier to work alone in the kitchen than deal with drunkards. Sighing deeply in the empty kitchen, I recall a recent moment when I stepped into the living room to serve the food. My relatives praised my work, but what my mom-in-law said was shocking. After I left the room, she openly called me a wife who can only do housework and that she's so clueless. I have to direct her all the time. Mason, whether he knew about this or not, was happily drinking away. I wish he'd back me up a bit. When I sneakily talked to my husband about her attitude, he dismissed it, saying it's normal for a wife to do household chores at her in-laws, and it's normal for a husband not to speak highly of his wife. You're overthinking it. Still, if I don't visit my spouse's parents' house, not only will my mom-in-law be upset, but Mason would be too. Even when I finally get a break, often all that's left for me to eat are leftovers. I know going to my spouse's parents' house isn't everyone's cup of tea, but I actually look forward to it. The reason? My niece Emma, who's my sister-in-law's daughter. We don't have any relatives close to her age, so when the uncles start getting loud and rowdy, she escapes to the kitchen where I am. "Auntie, can you help me with my homework?" "Sure, come here," I say. You see, I used to work part-time as a tutor, so while snacking on some treats, Emma and I would sit at the small kitchen table. I'd help her with her homework, or we'd play some card games. My mom-in-law adores Emma, her only grandchild, while everyone else also finds her charming. The pressure of their high expectations bothers her. I'm just a kid, and they're already talking about me going to Harvard or becoming a politician. It's too much. "Yeah, your life is your own." I say nothing, and she smiles, relieved. "My dream is to help people, but let's keep that between us. Grandma can't be too much," she says, winking. "She's just so adorable. I can't help but wonder what a child would have been like." My mom-in-law doesn't like how close Emma and I are, but holds her tongue, likely fearing she'd alienate her grandchild. I love Emma, and she's fond of me too. Getting through the challenges of visiting back home became easier with her by my side. As time passed, a grown-up Emma started helping me out with all the housework at my spouse's parents' home. Alongside her, my sister-in-law, who occasionally visited, started lending a hand as well. Living at my spouse's parents' home gradually became more comfortable. Then one cold day, as I hurriedly prepared for the morning, the phone rang loudly. "What could this be about so early in the morning?" Mason grumbled, picking up the phone. "An emergency at work, perhaps?" "What did you say?" Mason's loud voice made me stop what I was doing. "What happened?" "My dad." "What?" Turns out my father-in-law had suddenly passed away. He apparently had a heart attack when he went to the chilly kitchen for some water late at night. By the time my mom-in-law found him in the morning, he was already gone. He had been so lively just a month ago. Mason and I immediately went to my spouse's parents' home, surrounded by a mournful atmosphere. The wake took place that evening. While I was busy welcoming condolence visitors, I noticed Mason talking quietly with his mom in a corner. I was curious but too busy to ask. I figured I could ask later and moved on. After the funeral, while relaxing at home, Mason spoke to me with a pleading tone. "Hey, can we talk?" Mason approached, his demeanor unusually pleading. "Sure, what's up?" I was instantly on guard, sensing his unusual demeanor. "I have decided that we're going to live with Mom." I barely swallowed the scream that had risen to my throat. "You can't just drop that on me out of nowhere." "Look, it's our duty to take care of our aging parents, plus it's what Mom wants." I couldn't believe it. Living with that mom-in-law? "When did you decide this?" "I wasn't consulted at all." "Why do I need your permission? I bought this house, it's my mom we're talking about, and you're living on my earnings." I was at a loss for words. I couldn't believe he'd force such outdated beliefs on me. "I've been working hard at home too. Besides, I became a housewife because you wanted it. Don't complain to me when you haven't earned a single dollar." His shout made me flinch. Mason let out a long sigh and glared at me. "Who pays your mobile phone bill? Who bought your new morning attire, even your makeup? I cover the cost. Living with Mom is decided. If you don't want to lose this lifestyle, then don't complain." Yes, Mason does financially support our lifestyle, but I thought we had a deal. He works outside, I take care of home. I have no parents to fall back on, no savings, and finding a job is not as easy as it sounds for me. The idea of being apart from Mason was terrifying. Fine, I had no choice but to accept living with her. Life became hell once my mom-in-law moved in. With no relatives around to hold her back, she harassed me more than ever before. She complained about everything I did, from cooking and cleaning to laundry, morning till night. I'm stuck at home, lazing around on the sofa in front of the TV every day. Sometimes my mom-in-law goes out and comes back with random purchases, blowing through the money she got from selling her house and dipping into our savings. "I'm back. Went down to the station and got you your favorite cake," she says, ignoring me and starting a conversation with Mason. "Oh, looks tasty. Wait, why are there only 2 slices?" "Obviously, one for you and one for me, Sophia. Make us some coffee, will you?" Am I just a convenient servant here? If only Mason would take my side, things might be easier. Living with Mason has been like living with a child. Rather than standing by me, his wife, he always puts his mother's words first. Even when I tell him how I'm being jerked around by his mom, he says, "Don't you feel sorry for Mom? She's all alone in a new place. Try to be nice to her." As if I'm the one at fault. Between a selfish, mean mom-in-law and a spineless Mason, I'm starting to feel pretty lonely. Fast forward 3 months. After sending Mason off to work as usual, a sudden sharp pain strikes my stomach. The pain is so intense that I collapse onto the floor. I'm sweating bullets. This isn't good. "Excuse me, Mom. And Law, I must find the strength to get back to the living room and see her." "What, watching her morning soap opera and sipping coffee?" "Could you pass me the cell phone? I need to call Mason." "What?" "Just get it yourself." Besides, Mason just left. He can't answer calls on the boss. Mom-in-law refuses to listen to my emergency. I'm in extreme pain. I need to call her ride to the hospital. "You want to bother my son at work for a little stomach ache? Not on my watch." I reach for the phone and dial 911. Soon enough, an ambulance pulls up with the siren blaring. "What? Why is there an ambulance? Did you call it?" She looked shocked, as if she never expected this. "If you won't let me call Mason, what choice do I have? This is completely unnecessary." Her face flushes red with anger. The rescue squad quickly loads me onto a stretcher and takes me away. "You're in safe hands. We're headed to the nearest hospital," the paramedic assures me. When was the last time someone spoke to me so kindly? Just as I start to feel relieved, my consciousness starts to fade. When I come to, I'm in a hospital bed. It's already dark outside, and there's my mom-in-law, dressed to the nines, and Mason still in his suit, sitting next to me with stern faces. "According to the doctor, it looks like I have a stomach ulcer," I say, as the doctor leaves after telling me I'll be hospitalized for a week. Mason lets out a deep sigh. "So, you collapsed right after I left for work, huh? Is he worth it?" A glimmer of hope arises in my heart, but I was sorely mistaken. "Why didn't you call me instead of summoning an ambulance? Such a drama queen." My tiny glimmer of hope vanishes in an instant. I felt as if that small light of hope was snuffed out, plunging me into darkness. "You're always like this, getting your priorities all wrong? Is that why you're so inefficient at housework and stressed out? What a hassle you are." "Oh, please, the real stress is 70% you, mom-in-law, and 30% Mason." I'm too stunned to speak as I fall silent. Mom-in-law looks at me and says, "A homemaker's job is to keep the house in order, and you're planning to slack off in the hospital for a week. You're a disgrace as a wife. Let's just get divorced." In Mom-in-law's wrinkled hand, there's a piece of paper. "Yes, it's a divorce paper. Exactly. Mom's right." Mason chimes in, smirking as he starts filling out the form. "Wait." I panic. What happens to me if I'm abandoned now? I try to snatch the form from Mason, but my body won't cooperate. As Mason finishes filling out the form, he chuckles, seemingly amused at my situation. "See, she can't even live without me," Mason says as they leave. As they walk away, I crumble the divorce papers in my hand numbly. I open the bag inside. Besides my wallet and a pen, there are just a few added towels. I never thought they knew where my pajamas and underwear were, so it's as I expected. I have to buy almost everything new. Just as I sigh, the curtain around my hospital bed opens slightly. A nurse appears. I slowly look up, and I couldn't help but gasp. There, standing right in front of me, was Emma, my beloved niece, now a full-fledged nurse. We were both so happy at this unexpected reunion. When I told her why I was in the hospital, she got angry, and as if it was happening to her. I never expected to find an ally here. I was so happy I almost cried, and then I saw an opportunity. I won't rest until I make those two who look down on me regret it. So, Emma and I started to devise a plan. After about a week free from the stress of Mason and my mom-in-law, I was recovering well and set to be discharged tomorrow. I was on the phone in the empty room when it happened. "We heard you're getting discharged, so we thought we'd come in, walk Mason and my mom-in-law, Mason holding a bag from his favorite kake shop. We have to visit the wife at least once, or people will talk," he says. I pulled the phone from my ear, setting its screen down on the table, and sat on the bed, nodding. "Thank you for coming." They pulled up chairs near the bed and sat down. "You've had plenty of rest. You'll be working again from tomorrow," Mason says. What a way to say hello. Sure enough, there were 2 cakes in the bag on the table. They brought cakes for a hospital visit, but none for me. "Why don't you go buy some coffee from the shop? Our son used his precious day off to visit you. I don't think I have any money left. I spent it all on pajamas and underwear." I shake my head, and my mom-in-law audibly clicks her tongue. "Can't even buy a single coffee when you're the one causing inconvenience by being in the hospital, you lazy woman. Who's lazy one here?" Just then, the curtain around the bed whisks open and a smiling nurse appears. "Is it fun for you to harass your daughter-in-law in a hospital, Grandma?" My mom-in-law's face turns pale with shock. "Why are you here? I just transferred here. I was surprised too. I came to help, and when I came, I found my aunt here with a gastric ulcer. She doesn't smoke or drink, so I couldn't believe it until I heard what you just said." Emma's icy, stern words left my mom-in-law trembling. "No, you misunderstand." My mom-in-law's accusation was cut off by my sister-in-law's voice over the speaker. "What's wrong with you, Mason? Your wife is hospitalized, and this is how you act. Enough is enough." Hearing my sister-in-law's shouting, even Mason shrank back a bit. Sister-in-law and my niece are such justice-oriented folks that you'd think they were from a different family than mom-in-law and Mason. I think to myself, the idea to secretly listen in on the conversation between Mason and mom-in-law in the hospital room was all sister-in-law's plan. After watching Mason and mom-in-law shrink in size, I turned to sister-in-law again. Sister-in-law, thank you so much. I hang up the phone and look at Mason, who's all shriveled up. I haven't just been sleeping and resting this week, you know. You filed for divorce a week ago, right? I'll agree to it. Let's get divorced. Mason stares at me, dumbfounded. Of course he is. He never thought a housewife with no job or place to live would willingly let go of her current life. His baffled expression is so priceless I can't help but laugh. Annoyed? Mason yells. You have no job, no home. What are you planning to do? I answer, I'll work at the hospital. Emma's boss lives in the neighborhood. I explain the situation and everything is set. Never thought I'd be indebted to a neighbor like this. You're not a doctor or nurse. How can you work in a hospital? Emma interjects with a smile. You really don't know. This hospital employs various professionals, not just doctors and nurses. Emma winks at me as I watch Mason flabbergasted. It's the same kind of eye contact we had while tutoring or playing card games at the spouse's parents' house. I'll be working in the hospital's childcare center. They even have dormitories, so housing won't be an issue, I declare confidently. Mom-in-law, defending Mason, who's lost for words, angrily thrusts her wrinkled hand at me. Stop joking. If you're not my daughter-in-law, pay the full hospital bill. No, I'll take it. Oh, by the way, I'll be invoicing you for the divorce settlement later, I say. What do you know about asset division? I can claim half of the assets that Mason and I saved together, I continue. Mom-in-law trembles, and Mason shakes his head in confusion, but I just smile. Also, since I was hospitalized due to stress from you and mom-in-law, I'll be claiming damages in the divorce court. I have witnesses here too, I say. Emma's eyes fixate on mom-in-law, unable to withstand the unexpected situation. Mom-in-law and Mason flee the room. 2 cakes are left on the table in front of us. Emma, you like sweets, right? It's a waste to throw them away. Let's eat, I suggest. She nods with the same youthful smile as always. The next day, I'm discharged and submit the divorce papers. Later, under the condition that I won't claim damages in court, Mason agrees to pay a generous amount for asset division. That's when I found out. Apparently, the rumor had spread from Emma's boss. Mason and my mom-in-law were being talked about in the neighborhood as the villains who sent me to the hospital. Once I started getting used to my new life, I got a chance to hear about them from Emma, who lives in the same building as me. They had been living together for a while, but their days were full of constant arguments. My elderly mom-in-law couldn't handle the chores that her son demanded. She tried to get help from her daughter's home, but her daughter-in-law or sister-in-law had always disliked her. She was promptly turned down. Of course, the rest of the family found out. They are now estranged. Their biannual family gatherings have ceased to exist. As for me, I'm receiving guidance from a younger colleague, and despite the challenges of returning to work, my days are fulfilling. I can't get enough of my children reaching out their tiny hands for some love and affection. I occasionally go to lunch with my niece Emma, both as workplace colleagues and as friends. I may not have my own family, but I have Emma, who's like a daughter to me, and a chance to interact with children who are adorable as grandchildren. This is more than enough for happiness. During nap time in the nursery, I start to hear the soft snoring of a little girl who's